Hi there, and welcome to episode 16 of The Long Way Forward. My name's Brian, and today we'll be talking about standards. I call them the quiet power behind great teams. Now, if you've been following along through the earlier episodes, you'll know that many of the ideas we've explored come back to one central concept. And if you haven't heard the earlier episodes, highly recommend you do, because they form the foundation of this series. Now, the central concept behind all of our ideas are what you stand for and living what you stand for. Because if your values guide your behaviour shapes your environment and how you're perceived, earning trust. Over time, that environment becomes your culture. Now today, I'm going to talk with you about something that quietly sits underneath all of that. Standards. Now, a quick plug, if you're finding these conversations valuable, please support me, please subscribe. Because in the coming episodes, we'll keep unpacking the practical lessons behind strong leadership, team development, and building environments where people can do their best work. High-performing teams. It all starts with standards, though. Let's just unpack for a moment what the role of standards is. Every team operates according to standards. Sometimes they're written. Sometimes they're not. They're simply understood. But either way, trust me, they exist. Standards define what good looks like. They influence behaviour. And over time, they shape reputation, not only of a person, but of an organisation. And strong organisations understand that standards aren't just internal guidelines. They're not policies written on a bit of paper, read once and forgotten. Strong organisations understand that standards are signals. They show the outside world what the organisation stands for. Now, visible standards really matter. They become especially important when a business positions itself as a market leader. You see, when you claim leadership in any industry, as I do with my team, people expect to see it. Your customers, partners, employees, and even competitors, they expect to see your standards, both positioning and in evidence. Now, standards and leadership isn't just about what you say. It's about what people see when they look at your operations. For example, if you say that sustainability matters, people should see waste minimisation. People should see recycling systems working effectively. People should see evidence that your staff are being trained in these things. If you say sustainability matters to you. If you say quality matters, people should see processes that support quality, and they should also see the results from those processes. And there should be references available that those processes are being adhered to. Visible standards. Visible standards are so important because they build credibility. Maybe you're familiar with the ISO quality accreditation system. If you're familiar with ISO, that's one of the best examples there is. Standards and quality. Here's a good workplace example. Of course, I work in the environmental services industry, so here we go again. This one is about recycling and waste. And this comes from my own experience working in recycling and waste. And I encounter many businesses. They say they want to improve recycling, but the reality often looks different. Recycling bins contaminated, waste in the wrong bins, people unsure about what goes where or what the direction is. And over time, businesses with systems like that, recycling initiatives often fail. They fail quietly too. Now imagine a workplace that decides it wants to lead in sustainability relating to waste. They install clear, recycling systems. Bins are labelled properly. Staff are trained. Not just reactively, but when they're onboarded, the expectations are clearly set. The business standard is communicated. And then, once they've trained and given the staff the facilities to recycle and divert waste properly, they monitor how waste is being sorted. And most importantly, leadership takes an interest. They check. They reinforce expectations. They support improvement. And suddenly, you'll find that recycling rates improve. Waste decreases, and usually costs are minimised. And the workplace begins operating in alignment with its values. Now, when a workplace begins operating in alignment with its values, staff morale improves. Staff turnover decreases. That's what standards do. That's what living standards do. That's what living you're visibly demonstrating that you live to your standards as a business. That's what that will do for you. They turn your intention, oh, we want to be this, into behaviour. We are this. Now, here's a saying I have, and it might seem a little corny, but it's so valid. People respect what you inspect. I've always found this to be true. People respect what you inspect. In other words, people pay attention to the things leaders consistently check and reinforce. If leaders regularly review safety practices, visibly review, safety improves. If leaders regularly review customer service, service improves. And if leaders regularly check recycling, waste minimisation and waste systems, those systems improve too. Inspection, though, is not about policing. It's actually about signalling importance, because when leaders take an interest, the team understands that the standard matters. As I used to say to my sales manager back in the day, early in sales, I would say, mate, what's important to you is important to me. But you've got to tell me what's important to you. Otherwise, how will I know? And they did that. Show me where the goalposts are. Now, related to that is another saying I have. I'm full of them. Sayings. Remember, we had people respect what you inspect. This saying just dovetails perfectly into that. The standard that you walk past is the standard that you accept. Think about that. As a manager, as a leader, as a worker, as a parent, as a colleague, the standard you walk past is the one you accept. You're on public transport, there's someone behaving in an awful way towards another commuter. The standard you walk past is the one you accept. If a leader in a business walks past poor behaviour, that poor behaviour slowly becomes normal. Actually, it's sometimes not slowly at all. It just becomes normal. If a leader ignores mistakes that affect quality or sustainability, those mistakes quietly become a part of the culture. But when leaders notice and visibly address problems constructively and consistently, the opposite happens. The standard improves. People understand what good looks like, and the culture strengthens as a result. This is why standards are ultimately demonstrated through leadership behaviours. Think about that. Leadership through behaviour. Standards are demonstrated through leadership behaviour. Not policies, not posters, not statements, behaviour. The way leaders engage and visibly respond to issues, the way they reinforce expectations, the way they talk about the values and then model them. They walk the talk. That was another one of those sayings. They walk the talk. Leaders respond to problems, they reinforce expectations, and they model the values they talk about. Over time, those behaviours define the organisation. I'm sure we can all think of leaders that have done that across time. Now, every week I give you an exercise or I ask that you think about something. So here's this week's. What standards do your actions or behaviours communicate to the people around you? This isn't good or bad, by the way. This is just a thing. Think about, it could be how you dress. It could be, do you brush your teeth in the morning? It could be, do you shine your shoes? Trust me, shining your shoes, very important. If you wear shiny shoes, make sure they're clean and polished because people notice that. Do you arrive on time? Do you put the waste in the right bins? Do you say hello to people when you arrive at the office? These are all standards. They're subtle, they're actions, and they communicate things to people around you. Whether you realise it or not, your behaviour is always setting a standard. And it's the standard that you accept. It's the standard that you put out there for your team and for your workplace. And sometimes, if you're a significant leader, sometimes even for your whole industry. Now, on the topic of leadership, we're going to spend a few episodes on this, and then we're going to dive back into some of the other elements of this podcast. But in the next few episodes, we're going to talk a bit more about leadership. And in the very next episode, we're going to explore a leadership skill that you will find super useful if you want to strengthen your team and your environment. Listening. Because leaders who truly listen often learn more than they expect. Let's go back to that again. Leaders who listen more often learn more than they expect. Now, in closing, we're just going to touch back on what we've covered today. Standards quietly shape culture. Standards shaping culture turn values into everyday behaviour. And the strongest organisations understand that leadership is demonstrated through the standards they consistently uphold. So, to recap, if you're not sure about any of that, do run through the episode again. There's loads of good stuff in there. If you enjoy my podcasts, it'd be great if you subscribe. We've got so much more value coming up. Super excited about that. Thanks for stopping by my podcast. Again, it'd be great to have you subscribe. This is the long way forward. Thank you.